Hey everyone, today I'm going to go through Game 5 between Kasparov and Deep Blue. This match was played in 1997 New York at the Man vs Machine event. So Garry Kasparov is white here and Deep Blue is black. And Kasparov kicks off here with knight f3, the Reti opening, and Deep Blue continues with d5. Here g3 is played to fianchetto the bishop to g2. Bishop g4 from Deep Blue, attacking the knight and f3, threatening to double the pawns, so bishop g2 is played. Standard stuff, knight d7 and h3 from Kasparov here. A very quick move to attack the bishop on g4, hitting it straight away. So bishop takes f3 is played, wasting no time. Bishop takes f3 and c6 to protect the d5 pawn for black. d3 is played by Kasparov, unleashing this black bishop so it can develop. And now e6 from Deep Blue. And here what Deep Blue's done is basically got rid of their white squared bishop and then stuck all their pawns on a white square. So now this becomes quite a bad piece, and black has got rid of their white squared bishop in exchange for a knight that could jump into one of these squares if it ends up in a closed position. So this is quite a traditional idea from black. But Kasparov plays e4, trying to crack this opening open. Knight e5 though from Deep Blue, attacking the bishop on f3. I wonder if black would actually take that bishop. I guess he would, because these two pawns have actually made white's position quite weak, so it makes sense to keep the bishop on. But here Deep Blue plays d takes e4, and now if white recaptures with their d pawn, there comes an exchange of queens. King takes castles queenside, and the king is forced to move, and black just develops and has the edge here, so it makes more sense in this position for white's recapture with the bishop, even though it's moved 3 times already in this opening. So it looks like things are fairly even at the moment. Knight f6, and now white moves the bishop again, and black now starts to gain a lead in development. He plays bishop b4 check, and now knight d2, developing and blocking the check. h5 was played, maybe with the threat of pushing to h4 and disrupting these two pawns. Yeah, h5 to h4 here would be an absolutely terrible move for white. So here Kasparov now starts to take some sort of initiative and develop more pieces. So queen e2, attacking the knight on e5. Queen c7 from Deep Blue, defends it. c3, attacks the bishop on b4. It's forced to move back to bishop to e7. And now Kasparov plays d4, attacking the knight on e5. And knight g6 is played. And now h4 to stop this h pawn advance. So white's just played a series of good moves to push black back. However, here Deep Blue plays e5, attacking the pawn on d4. If white captures this pawn on e5, there follows knight takes, castles, castles, possibly knight c4 and captures with knight g4, and black is perfectly fine here. As is white really. I guess a move maybe bishop f4 would follow, maybe bishop d6 or something. And the game is still well and truly on. However, Kasparov played knight to f3, just reinforcing the d pawn. Deep Blue captured, knight takes and castles queenside, unleashing this rook into the centre. White's got to be a bit careful here because he's quite underdeveloped, and the king is behind the queen, so once black puts a rook onto the e file, it can get quite scary. But here Kasparov played bishop g5, developing the last piece and hoping to castle queenside. Knight g4, and this is where white has got to be careful because the bishop is now threatening to take on g5, followed by rook h to e8. So castles by Kasparov, protecting the king. And now rook h e8. Black's pieces are all in the game now. The rook on e8 is eyeing up the queen on e2. So here white could opt to play bishop takes e7. If rook takes e7, queen c2, and knight to e5 from black. White can continue developing, let's say with rook e1, and black can continue as well by doubling the rooks on the e-file. And here could follow some interesting exchanges. f3, knight d3, and this is a computer variation. So after queen takes d3, taking the knight, rook takes e1. White captures the other knight, and rook takes d1, king takes d1, h takes g4. After queen f5 and queen d7, the smoke is cleared, and white has 2 pieces for the rook, but black has the extra pawn. And I wonder whose position you'd rather play here. I think The computer suggests black is actually slightly better, but in practice white does have two pieces, so it would be very difficult indeed. But instead of taking on e7, Kasparov played queen c2, a more safe option. King b8 to stop queen f5 check, and king b1 from Kasparov, keeping the king safe. Here followed bishop takes g5, h takes g5, and knight to e5. Now white has to be careful here, because if rook takes h5, capturing a pawn, black can now gain the initiative with c5, attacking the knight. It moves to b3, rook takes d1 check, king takes d1, and knight takes f2, and black's position looks really good. This rook on h5 looks really offside, and these two knights and the rook are coming into the game. Instead, Kasparov played rook e1, putting their rooks into the centre, and c5 from black anyway. Knight f3, rook takes d1 from deep blue, rook takes d1, and knight to c4 from deep blue. Now here Kasparov attacked both pieces. He attacked the knight on c4 and the rook on e8. The only way to save the pieces is for black to attack white. So he plays rook d8, attacking the rook on d1. So now white can't take on c4. And if white now captures on d8 with check, queen takes. If queen takes c4, queen d1 is checkmate for black. So instead, rook e1 was played, and the knight moves back to b6, attacking the queen. Queen c2 was played by Kasparov. Queen d6 from deep blue, just putting the two pieces on the d file, securing that. And c4, I like this move very much. What it does is limits this knight, can't jump into d5 anymore, and stops his pawn from progressing any further. But queen g6 now, the knight's threatening on f2, and the queen is threatening to swap off. So black's pieces really come into play. The knight on b6 attacking c4, the knight on g4 is attacking f2. And the only defender for white of these pawns is the queen. So Kasparov here actually sacrifices a pawn knowing he'll get it back. He plays queen takes g6, f takes g6, and now b3 to protect c4. After knight takes f2, rook e6 is played, attacking the pawn on g6. And that is undefendable. Deep blue here play king c7, getting the king into the endgame. And here Kasparov actually took the pawn on g6. However, I think a far better move is knight to e5, unleashing this bishop and unleashing the knight at the same time. If rook d6, white can play rook e7, and will gain the pawn on g7 a move later. Black's best option is rook d1 check, but after king c2, rook a1, rook takes g6 can be played. After rook takes a2 check, king b1 attacking the rook. The rook is moving to e2 to attack the knight, but rook g7 check comes, king d6, and after knight f7, white has a favourable position because there's a passed g-pawn now, so he needs to be very careful indeed, and this bishop on g2 also eyes up the pawn on b7. So it's looking quite ropey for black, so I'm surprised Kasparov didn't go for knight to e5 here. Instead he took on g6, still a logical move, and now he's attacking g7 as well. But rook d7 defends it. Knight h4, this unleashes the bishop and threatens to play knight to f5, where we can gang upon this g7 pawn. Knight c8 was played, and bishop d5, which blunts this rook on d7. Knight d6 was played by deep blue, and rook e6 was played by Kasparov. Knight d6 actually stops knight to f5, so this is probably why rook e6 was played. And here, deep blue played knight to b5, possibly threatening knight to c3 check, or threatening to put the knight into d4, which white doesn't really want. So here Kasparov took the knight. The rook can now capture the bishop on d5, and now he's attacking the pawn on g5. So rook g6 defends this and attacks g7 again. Now black actually has the option here of playing knight e4. After rook takes g7, rook d7, takes g6, king e6, king c2. Black can take on g3 now, and if king d3, king f6, king c4, b6, we're getting to this endgame. And king f3 here, knight f1, king e4. It's actually dead even here. So this may explain why black went for rook d7 here instead. just protecting the g-pawn and stopping white from gaining a passed pawn with the g-pawn. Knight f5 now, attacking the pawn on g7, but now knight e4, attacking both of white's pawns as well. Knight takes g7 anyway. Rook d1 check, king c2, attacking the rook. Rook d2 check, king c1, and rook takes a2. It could get interesting here. Knight takes h5, knight d2, threatening to take on b3, knight f4, and now knight takes b3, king b1, rook d2, and rook e6, and white's idea here is just to push this pawn up. Black also pushes with c4. Kasparov actually played rook to e3 here, stopping the progression of the c-pawn. Another idea is rook e4, threatening the pawn, and threatening to play rook c4 check, capturing the pawn on c3 if it moves. So king b6, rook takes c4, king takes b5, rook c2. Trying to swap off rooks. Rook d1, king a2, knight d4, rook b2 check, king c6. And here white pushes the pawn. But after knight f5, g4, knight h6, rook h2, white actually has a really good edge here. So I think in this position it was preferable for white to play rook to e4, even though this is a really long combination. Instead, Kasparov played rook to e3, preventing black from playing c3. So but king b6 was played, and now g6. But white made queen, but black has really good coordination of pieces, as you'll see. After king takes b5, g7, king b4, a draw is agreed. And this is because simply after white queens with g8, the rook can just perpetual check the king. So rook d1, king b2, rook d2, king b1, and rook d1. The knight and the rook and the king all coordinate together to perpetual check the king. So this is quite unlucky for white, and possibly a reason why we should have gone rook e4 first, because we can get rid of this pawn. It will stop these future perpetual checks and gives white a chance to play using this g-pawn and gaining a queen. So anyway, this was game 5, and this actually tied things up with 2.5 points each, 1 win each, and we go into game 6 all square. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll be back soon with the final game, game 6. Thanks for watching.